Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something pretty fascinating. We're going to crack open a book that's over 1,400 years old. But here's the twist. We're not just looking for history or scripture. We're hunting for echoes of modern science. Yeah, you heard that right. We're exploring the surprising scientific messages hidden inside the Quran.
So, this really brings up a huge question, right? How could a text from the 7th century, think about that, way before telescopes, before modern medicine, how could it possibly describe the universe, our planet, or even human biology in a way that lines up with what science tells us today? It sounds kind of impossible. So, let's just dive in and see what the text itself has to say about it. Okay, but before we get into the really specific stuff, there's one thing we absolutely have to get straight. The Quran. It's not a science textbook. It never claims to be. Instead, what it does, as this verse here points out, is present the natural world as a collection of signs. Think of them like clues or little breadcrumbs that are meant to make you stop, think, and just wonder.
And there's a really cool linguistic detail here. The Arabic word for these signs is ayat. But what's fascinating is that ayat is also the word for the verses of the Quran itself. That's no accident. That dual meaning is so important because it's telling us that the natural world and the written word are both seen as books, both full of profound messages, just waiting for us to read them.
All right, so let's start our journey big. As big as it gets. We're heading out into the cosmos to look at a few of these ayat that talk about the very nature and structure of our universe. So, what's the first question you'd ask? For me, it's about the big picture, the cosmic architecture. When this ancient text gazes up at the sky, what does it describe? A universe of chaos and chance? Or something else? Something more like a carefully constructed, orderly design? So check this out. This verse talks about the universe being built in layers, but then it does something amazing. It throws down a challenge directly to the reader. It says, "Look again. Can you see any cracks?" It's basically daring you to find a flaw. It's painting this picture of a perfectly seamless, coherent cosmos with no inconsistencies in its design at all.
Okay, now this one is all about the language. I want you to really focus on the verb it uses, wraps. It says, he wraps the night around the day and wraps the day around the night. Now, for someone in the 7th century, that's a really familiar physical action. It's like wrapping a turban around your head. It's this incredible dynamic image that, a lot of people today look at and see as a stunningly accurate analogy for how day and night literally envelop a spherical Earth.
Okay, so we've been out in the vastness of space. Now let's zoom way, way in, right back down to our home planet. Because the Quran suggests there are just as many of these ayat, these signs, hidden in the intricate design of the Earth itself. All right, so we're going to zero in on a few specific phenomena mentioned in the text. We're talking about mountains acting as stabilizers, a really interesting description of the water cycle, and this mysterious barrier that separates two different seas.
So in this verse, mountains aren't just pretty scenery, they're actually given a function, a job. They're called stabilizers to keep the Earth from shifting around with you. And this is where it gets really interesting because some people have compared this idea to the modern geological concept of isosity. That's basically the idea that mountains have these deep, deep roots that go down into the mantle, kind of like pegs that literally anchor and stabilize the Earth's crust.
And then there's this verse. It describes something that for a long time must have sounded like a riddle. It talks about two seas that meet up, but there's a barrier between them so they don't just mix into one. And today we know this actually happens. If you go to a place like the Strait of Gibraltar, you can see it. The Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea meet, but because they have different temperatures and salt levels, they don't just immediately blend together. There's a visible line between them.
And then, right after describing that amazing natural wonder, the whole chapter's tone just shifts. It starts asking this one question over and over again, more than 30 times actually. It's this powerful rhythmic refrain that's clearly designed to take a scientific observation and elevate it, to turn it into a moment of pure awe.
Okay, we've gone from the cosmic to the planetary. For our last stop, we're going microscopic. We're shifting from the unbelievable vastness of space to the incredible intimacy of the womb to see what the Quran says about how human life actually begins.
And once again, look at how it starts. It prompts you to think, to reflect on where you came from. It says, hey, let man consider what he was created from. It starts off simple, talking about a gushing liquid. But another passage goes way, way deeper and lays out the whole process in some pretty remarkable detail.
Now, what's so striking here isn't just the words, it's the sequence. The text lays out a very clear, step-by-step process of how we develop in the womb. Look at the progression. It goes from a seed to a clot
to a lump. And then, and this is a really specific detail, it says the bones are formed, and then the bones are clothed with flesh. Modern embryology confirms this exact sequence. It's not random, it's a specific linear order of events.
And just like we saw with the two C's, after laying out this whole biological process, the verse pivots. The tone completely shifts. It moves from what sounds almost like a scientific description of development to this powerful declaration of praise and awe for the creator behind it.
Wow. So, we've just taken this incredible journey, haven't we? From the stars down to the oceans, all the way into the very beginning of a human life. And we've seen it all through the lens of a text that's 1,400 years old.
And that brings us back to where we started. Whether we're talking about the perfect order of the cosmos, the strange barriers in the sea, or the stages of life in the womb, the point is always the same. This isn't about presenting raw scientific data. It's about presenting ayat, signs, that are just waiting for us, inviting us to stop and think. And all of this really leads to one final big question. It's the question that feels like it's hiding behind every single one of these signs. Where did these messages come from? What is their source? Now, the Quran, of course, gives its own answer to that question, but in the end, it leaves the reflection up to you. Thanks so much for joining me.